Okay, now we are ready to create the database layer for our application. And we start with creating a VNIC for this database zone. It will be using our virtual switch with vSwitch 0, and we will call this VNIC dbint0, which means we will be using it for our internal communications. And then second step is zone configuration, which is pretty similar to our web zone. We will set the zone path parameter, then we will add the network interface using dbint0 VNIC, and then we will add our data set we have created on our storage layer step, and we will use this data set to store our MySQL data. Okay, and now we are done with the zone configuration step. Second step is creating the zone profile, very similar to our web zone part. We use the same sysconfig create profile command, and we will store this file in our root home directory in the file dbzone-profile.xml. And the steps are pretty similar to the web zone profile creation. We use computer name, and computer name will be dbzone. And again, we will not configure our network parameters in this step, and we set the time zone parameter, root password, user name, and user password. Root password is Solaris1, user password is Oracle1. And basically that's all. And at the next step, we are not going to install the zone from scratch and wait another 10 minutes. But instead of that, we're going to clone our existing zone, web zone, and we will see how faster it is and how much less space it will require. Again, in this case, I will use my video editing magic to shorten the time, but most likely you will see the difference between installation and cloning. And here we can compare the sizes of our zones after initial installation and after cloning. As you can see, 600 megabytes for web zone and just 300 kilobytes for database zone because of cloning. Okay, now let's boot both zones, web zone and DB zone, and log in into DB zone and check what's available and configure our networking. Okay, both zones are up and running, and now let's log in into DB zone. You might need to wait a little bit longer than in this video. Again, we use zuser, login, and password Oracle1, and then immediately after that we become root user. First, let's check what packages are available. Of course, as soon as we have cloned our web zone, Apache web server package is there, and MySQL package is there as well. So we have all what we need for our database. And by the way, Apache is up and running, which we probably don't need. So let's just disable this service because we just don't need it. And then let's configure our network in this zone. So far we have just loopback interface. Let's configure our dbint0. First we create IP stack on this VNIC, and then we assign a fixed IP address to this IP interface. It's going to be 10.0.3.11. Remember, with WebZone we have .10. And let's see. Yes, we have now dbint0 up and running, and with the IP address 10.0.3.11. And now let's check. We can ping our WebZone not only by IP address, which is 10.0.3.10, but also as soon as we have cloned our WebZone, we inherited the content of etc hosts file, and now we can ping it by name, ping WebZone, and we see that WebZone is live. And now let's configure MySQL database interface. We see that my dataset is available in this zone, and we have to start with changing its ownership and access parameters. Change owner of this dataset to MySQL, and change access rights to 700 for this dataset. And then we have to tell MySQL service that we are going to use this dataset instead of the default one. We use service configure command, and we change this parameter for the MySQL service. Then we have to refresh this service, and then we can start it. Okay, now the service is enabled, and we can check that. Yes, you see MySQL is online, and now we can log in into our database. So here we are. And to install our WordPress application, we have to create a database for that. We will call it WP01. Yes, we have created this database, and a second step is to add privileges to our user, which we will be using to manage our WordPress database. The username is WordPress, and this user will be accessing our database from WebZone, and this user will be using password Oracle1. So we use this MySQL sentence to grant all privileges to that user accessing our database from the host WebZone using password Oracle1. And basically that's all. That's all we need from the database side to prepare for the WordPress installation. Now exit the database zone and exit the system console. Don't forget, you have to use ~dot to exit the console. And now let's configure the web layer part of our application. Login into WebZone, again using zuser, login name, and Oracle1 password. And first we have to download the application itself. Again, become a root user, and download the WordPress distribution. It should not take a long time. Then unzip the distribution. And you will see that now you have WordPress folder in your root directory, and change to that folder. And then we have to change the configuration file. Start with copying the sample file into wp-config.php. And then we have to edit it. Before editing, change your terminal parameter to xterm to make vi working. You have to change a couple of parameters in this configuration file. First, you have to change the database name. Our database is called WP01, and make this edit here. Our username for this database will be WordPress. Our password for this user will be Oracle1. And our host name will be dbzone. Okay, that's all for the configuration part. And now let's install the application. We have to create a separate folder in our web server home directory, which we will call blog, and copy the distribution into that directory. Remember, we have already configured our application, so we have to copy everything from this WordPress directory into our new blog directory. And then start your web browser and point it to your IP address of your web zone. In my case, it's 192.168.1.114/blog/wp-admin/install.php. In your case, replace the IP address with your IP address of your web zone. And the rest is easy. Just create the blog title. In my case, it will be called Oracle Solaris 11 blog. Username will be admin, and password will be Oracle1, of course. And I put my email address just in case. And then press install WordPress. You have to wait a little bit, not very long, and then your application is installed. You can log in using your Oracle1 password and username admin, and create your first blog post. Hello, Oracle Solaris 11 world. That's all. We just have installed our web application using Oracle Solaris 11 zones, and we used database zone, we used web zone, we used virtual internal networking, and it works now.